Hello, everybody. I would like to introduce Claudius Krucker. Thank you for being here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I have already met quite a few people in the chat at the exhibitions booth, so it has been an interesting afternoon so far.
Nice. Happy to hear that, and we are pleased to have you also here. I would like to first give a little bit of introduction about him. So he's the CreativeSpace co-working spaces in 2014 in Zurich and St.Gallen. He's also co-founder of Coworking Switzerland and the Swiss Coworking Federation, of which he's acting as a co-president since 2020. Today, he will be sharing his view on what new work in 2022 means. Sound interesting, right? Then without further ado, Claudius, please feel free to start.
Thank you, and I just start sharing my screen. So let's talk about new work. And if you expected me to present the final predictions for new work in 2022, it's probably just a fault of your expectations, because predictions are difficult, particularly when it comes to the future. So what I'd like to share with you is a couple of thoughts and trends about new work, about the latest trends and development. New work has been kind of a buzzword in the past months. Everybody's talking about it, but actually it's not that new. The word comes from Fridtjof Bergmann, who actually died in May this year at the age of 90 years. So this handsome young guy brought up the word new work, the term, in the early 1980s. He traveled through Eastern Europe, had a look at the socialist communist countries, and also had a look at the Western capitalist countries, and developed a counter model in the end to both the socialism and the capitalism. So what is new work? That's the question we start, and often new work is somehow tied to new workspace concept, which is of course not wrong. So workspace concept, like we now have a very colorful new lounge and a table soccer, but that's not everything. And there is also the digitization that has been talked about a lot. So we have the digitized working process that make work much more efficient and more transparent. At least when it comes to efficiency, I'm not that sure about it when I look at all my Slack and WhatsApp and email inboxes. So we have experienced the largest remote work experiment on a global scale in 2020. And of course, this gave a big boost to digitization of quite a few industries. So agility, to structure the structures and the processes in a way that you are more agile, that you can react if the outside requirements change. You need to adopt faster. The flexibility when to work, where to work, in what setting to work, depending also on the situation, what kind of work you need to do. Low to no hierarchy, that's something that also comes together with the digitization, there is a necessity of new leadership models, and the individuality. We already know management by objectives for quite some time, but now it's getting even further. But all of these terms, in the end, in the core, come together in two terms, that's purpose and autonomy. So purpose, we want to do meaningful work, or as Fridtjof Bergmann said, to do the work you really, really want. And the second term is the autonomy, and this, for example, comes with the individuality, and it also came with the remote work we have seen in the past 1.5 years increasing. So the autonomy now makes it kind of difficult when the companies want to call back their workforce to the office. Deloitte made the remote working survey in February 2021, and the result is that only 12% of the Swiss employees, at least the ones that took part in the survey, want to get back to the office as they have been before. So like their full workload back in the office. And we have about 1/4 who wants to stay in the home office. The interesting point is that the biggest majority wants to be somewhere in between. This means partly in the corporate office and partly at home or somewhere else, because the full-time home office has some challenges, and also in the survey, the major challenges turned out to be the lack of personal exchange, the distractions by children, by family, lack of infrastructure, and also the suitable office, which I look at as infrastructure as well. Personal exchange leads to mental and physical health issues. So these are all challenges that leads to something where I come from with the co-working. So we have the first place, that's where we live, that's where we have our personal private life. We have the second place, that's the office, that's where the work is taking place traditionally. And we can now also have a third place, for example, the co-working, that somehow bridges the gap and brings together the advantages of the home office and the advantages of a real office. So you do have exchange with other real people. You don't have the distractions you have in the home office. You have a structure, you go to your workplace, it's not just next door, and also you go back home from the work environment in the evening. On the other hand, you don't have to commute as far as for the corporate office, and this is why I predict for 2022 that co-working and also other concepts of flexible workspace will grow. Co-working is one of the flexible office concepts that has kind of community management, where the community is in the center. And of course, we also do need some space to offer co-working space, but the center is the community, and with some tendencies of unused workspace companies that need less surface than before, there will also be other concepts that are more focused maybe on the on giving the service, on renting out desks, than on the community building. So this is something that will rise for sure, at least that's my prediction. And another point is that we see the flexibility also when it comes to the leadership models. The people have been in the home office, they felt the autonomy, and calling them back now to the corporate office, it doesn't work just to have the same leadership structures. So people don't want to have the same hierarchies as they have before. They do want more autonomy. So it's not just about the leadership models need to change because of the increase of remote work, but we also have the autonomy that demands for new leadership models. And I suppose that this will be one of the topics in the next session in a couple of minutes when I have finished. So the agility means that we need to create more of a startup mindset. It's not about companies being big or small, it's about companies being fast and agile versus the slow, big super tankers. And what we also see in the past years, that the number of full-time employees in Switzerland over the past 30 years have increased just a little bit, while on the other hand, the number of part-time employees has kind of doubled. So the structure of the work has changed. And I suppose that this goes together with the purpose. So you don't want to spend 100% of your time in a normal employee work, but you want to spend more time in other purposeful means, like, for example, spending more time with your family or going for some other work, build your own project. We also see that in the past 10 years, the number of part-time self-employment has increased by 30% with men and only about 10% with the women. So we see that the employment status also shifts from the standard employee contract towards more self-employed work. This means that new work is not just a topic for the companies, but it's a topic of society, of the individual people who ask themselves, what do I really want? And it's not about having fun at work. That's on a different plate. But it's about doing what you really, really want. And this is something the companies need to bear in mind. They need to move ahead in order to remain or become attractive, to hire the best workforce. On the other hand, the people also ask themselves, what do I really want? And is it just one thing or is it multiple things? So this is how I see the shifts in the now I this is how I see a shift in the work world in the next years. And as I said, it's more about discussing some ideas. So maybe there are some opinions and questions from the audience. So
Thank
I
you so
just
much,
see.
Claudius. Yeah, now everyone, it's time for the question and answer. So please feel free to ask your questions, and we will be able to answer. So there's one question, I'll put it on the stage. Which marketing tools you prefer for 2022?
In terms of how to attract the best workforce, or
I think I assume so.
I must admit that I don't get the. I mean, I can tell you about how I'd like to advertise my co-working space, but I don't think that this helps much on this topic.
Is there any more questions? While we search, we have one question. Would you like to give some insight about your art platform, this artagenda.com?
Okay, so Art Agenda is an art and exhibition platform which I started to build in 2013. And so my original degree I have from the university is in law, but I kind of left this legal path pretty soon after some time in the project development at the university, and finally made it to more arts and culture, innovation, and the startup world. And of course, with the co-working, it's also that the freelancing is one of the topics I'm looking at. And so we started also the Swiss Freelancers Association, with which we have a booth here. And I see just another question that came up. The ideal size of a co-working space. Now this reply might take maybe 20 to 30 minutes. No. I don't think that there is an ideal size of a co-working space because there is not a single type of co-working space. There are quite a few flavors of co-working spaces, be it some city center co-working spaces in the larger cities, which are completely different from the rural co-working spaces somewhere in a village in the countryside, or a co-working space that is based somewhere in a touristic region. So from this point of view, when you ask for the co-working space ideal size, commercially speaking, probably it should be more than 1,000 square meters, but quite a few co-working spaces are not mainly driven by the commercial aspects, but by building community for a local area, the local communities. And so it's not just about the business model.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much. And the one last question is that could you mention some of the most common mistake people make during their journey of entrepreneurship?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
It's like, could you please mention some of the most common mistakes that people make during their journey of entrepreneurship?
Sorry, which journey?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
It's like just a question. This is a common question that has been asked. That what are the most common mistakes that people make when they start the first company, like the baby company that they just start? Any journey, it could be the IT company or any company.
Entrepreneurial journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think one general mistake is that you always underestimate the time and the work the start takes. On the other hand, when we talk about agility, the startup mindset to go in small steps and check out whether your idea works and adjust if it turns out that it doesn't work. Many startups try somehow to go for the perfect solution. So it's better to start small and go step by step, because this keeps you agile and makes it possible to adjust before you spend too much time and also money.
Cool. Thank you so much. I think with this, we have to unfortunately end the session since we are running out of the time. But thank you so much for your great tips. And I'm sure that every of the listeners have definitely a lot to take from this. Thank you so much, everyone, also to join us here with us. And have a patience to go through the entire presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.